Give me 5 minutes, and I guarantee this will change your perspective forever. You've been lied to about wealth. The secret to financial freedom isn't in some Wall Street playbook. It's hiding right in front of you. The coffee shop you visit, the brands you love, the products you can't stop buying. These are the real opportunities, but most people never see them. Why? Because they've been trained to follow the crowd instead of thinking like the wealthy. This story will flip everything you know about investing on its head. 5 minutes, that's all I ask. Keep listening, because this might be the moment that changes your life. Ethan Reynolds stared at the glowing red numbers on his computer screen. The market had crashed. Again. His clients had lost millions overnight. His stomach twisted as he imagined the onslaught of angry phone calls he'd have to face. His office, once a symbol of success, now felt claustrophobic. The expensive leather chair, the shelves stacked with finance books, the framed certificate from Wharton, all of it suddenly seemed meaningless. His phone buzzed. It was Greg Simmons, one of his biggest clients. Ethan hesitated before answering. "Ethan?" Greg's voice was eerily calm. "Tell me you have good news." Ethan swallowed hard. "Greg, the entire market." "I don't care about the market. I care about my portfolio. You said those tech stocks were the future." Ethan rubbed his temple. He had said that. He'd followed the reports, the analyst recommendations, the hyped-up forecasts. And yet, everything had tanked. "I'll do my best to recover," Ethan said, but Greg had already hung up. Ethan exhaled and leaned back. The truth was, he didn't know what to do anymore. He'd spent 15 years on Wall Street, climbing the ranks, believing he had a system. He watched CNBC religiously, analyzed charts, followed trends. But now, at 43, he realized he had been playing a game where the rules kept changing. Maybe he wasn't as good as he thought. Frustrated, he pushed away from his desk and grabbed his coat. He needed air. Ethan wandered the streets of Manhattan, his mind clouded with self-doubt. Had he wasted his career chasing the wrong things? His feet led him to a small second-hand bookstore tucked between two high-rise buildings. On impulse, he stepped inside. The scent of aged paper and dust hit him. He had no intention of buying anything, just killing time before facing reality again. Then he saw it. A worn-out paperback sitting on a shelf labeled Investing Classics. One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. The title stirred something in him. He recognized the name. Lynch was a legend, a man who turned Fidelity's Magellan Fund into a behemoth. But Ethan had never paid much attention to his philosophy. He picked up the book, flipping through the pages. The best stock to buy is the one you already understand. Ethan frowned. That's it? Not complex models, not advanced algorithms. He skimmed another passage. Investment opportunities are everywhere. If you're a consumer, you already have an edge over Wall Street analysts. Ethan's grip on the book tightened. This went against everything he had been taught. He almost put it back, but something made him pause. For the first time in a long while, he felt hope. He bought the book. Ethan sat in his apartment that night, a glass of whiskey on the table, the city skyline stretching outside his window, but he barely noticed it. He was too absorbed in the book. Peter Lynch's words felt like a slap and a lifeline at the same time. People invest in stocks like they buy groceries, without doing research. They listen to hot tips, buy what's trending, and panic when things go south. But the real winners, they observe, they think, and they invest in what they understand. Ethan exhaled. That was him. He had spent years chasing trends, trusting reports from so-called market experts. But how many times had those same experts been wrong? Lynch's philosophy was simple. Look around. Use common sense. If you see a great business in real life, it's probably a great investment. Ethan put the book down and stared at his portfolio on his laptop. His biggest losers were companies he had never personally used. Overhyped tech startups, speculative biotech firms, and next big thing stocks. He had invested because the market said so, not because he believed in them. He took a deep breath. Maybe it was time to try something different. The next morning, Ethan walked into Penny's Cafe, a local coffee shop he had visited every day for the past 5 years. The place was packed, as always. A long line stretched to the door, customers chatting happily as the baristas worked with robotic efficiency. Ethan sipped his usual black coffee. Then it hit him. He had been drinking the same coffee from the same cafe for years. So had half of Wall Street, judging by the crowd. Curious, he pulled out his phone and searched for the company behind Penny's Cafe. Burlington Beverages, Inc. He had never heard of it, but the numbers shocked him. The company had steadily grown over the past decade, opening new locations nationwide. Their revenue was climbing, profits were solid, yet Wall Street barely paid attention to it. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his heartbeat quickening. Had he just found a hidden gem? Invest in what you know. If a company is doing well before Wall Street catches on, that's your edge. Ethan had never invested this way before, but for the first time in a long time, he felt in control. He made a decision. Instead of blindly following market analysts, he would trust his own observations. Hey, sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying this story so far, consider hitting that subscribe button. Your support truly means the world to us. All right, let's continue. Ethan sat in his office, staring at his trading platform. His usual approach would have been to analyze trend reports, analyst ratings, and stock predictions before making a move. But this time, he hesitated. Instead of diving into Wall Street forecasts, he thought about his own experiences. Burlington Beverages, Inc. wasn't a stock that had made headlines, but it was a business people loved, a coffee chain that had grown quietly, earning customer loyalty without flashy marketing. He pulled up the company's financials again. Revenue growth, consistent over the last 5 years. Debt level, low. Expansion plans, steady and controlled, not reckless. Competitor comparison. Not as big as Starbucks, but gaining ground. Ethan took a deep breath. This was it. For the first time in his career, he was about to invest based on real-world experience, not industry speculation. He placed the trade. Days turned into weeks. Ethan kept watching Burlington Beverages, not just on his trading screen, but in real life. He started talking to baristas whenever he visited Penny's Cafe. "How's business?" he'd ask casually. "Oh, crazy busy," one of them laughed. "We're always short-staffed. We're hiring like crazy, but people keep coming in." Ethan's instincts sharpened. If a company was expanding and struggling to keep up with demand, that was a good sign. He checked their quarterly earnings report. The company's profits had jumped 12%, yet it was still under the radar of most analysts. One afternoon, he met up with his old friend Marcus, a fellow broker who still swore by traditional investing methods. "Burlington Beverages?" Marcus frowned as he swirled his drink. "Never heard of it." "Exactly," Ethan grinned. "That's why I'm interested." Marcus chuckled. "You're telling me you picked this stock because you like their coffee?" Ethan leaned forward. "No, I picked it because thousands of people like their coffee, and Wall Street hasn't figured that out yet." Marcus waved a dismissive hand. "Look, man, you know the game. The real money is in the big players. Tech, AI, biotech. That's where the action is." Ethan smiled but didn't argue. He had played that game. It had burned him. This time he was trusting his own eyes, not someone else's analysis. And for the first time in years, investing felt exciting again. 2 months had passed since Ethan bought shares of Burlington Beverages, Inc., and something strange was happening. He wasn't obsessively checking stock charts every hour like before. Instead, he was watching the real world. He noticed more Penny's Cafe locations opening across Manhattan. He overheard conversations, commuters raving about the new seasonal latte, students studying with Burlington's signature cold brew. Everywhere he looked, the business was thriving. And then, something big happened. One morning, Ethan scrolled through financial news while sipping his coffee. A headline caught his eye. Burlington Beverages reports record profits. Stock surges 20%. Ethan nearly spilled his drink. He quickly opened his trading app. Sure enough, his investment had skyrocketed overnight. His heart pounded, not because of the money, though that was nice, but because he had been right. No analyst had recommended this stock. No Wall Street firm had hyped it up. He had trusted his own research, his own instincts, and it had paid off. For the first time in years, he felt in control. That evening, Ethan met Marcus again for drinks. Marcus smirked as he set his beer down. "So, the coffee stock actually made you money, huh?" Ethan grinned. "Yeah, shocking, right?" Marcus shook his head. "Beginner's luck. Look, you got in early, but that doesn't mean this is a real strategy. What happens when the hype fades? What if the market tanks again?" Ethan shrugged. "Then I'll do what Peter Lynch says. Hold, reassess, and look for more solid companies." Marcus chuckled. "You sound like some amateur retail investor now." Ethan wasn't offended, because that's exactly what he wanted to be. For years he had been chasing market trends, trying to outsmart Wall Street. Now, he was investing like a regular person, someone who just paid attention to great businesses. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of the market anymore. That night, Ethan sat at his desk, flipping through One Up on Wall Street again. The best investors aren't the ones who follow the crowd. They're the ones who see what others ignore. He grabbed a notebook and started writing down every business he personally loved and believed in. This wasn't just an investment strategy anymore. It was a new way of thinking. And Ethan was just getting started. Ethan had changed. For years, he had obsessed over stock charts, market forecasts, and expert predictions. But now, his daily routine had shifted. Instead of scrolling through CNBC articles, he walked through neighborhoods, paying attention to businesses around him. Instead of listening to hedge fund managers, he listened to real people, customers, employees, and store owners. And it was working. One afternoon, while shopping for his niece's birthday, Ethan stepped into Bright Kids Toys, a specialty toy store. The place was packed. Parents laughed as their kids tested out colorful play sets. The employees were genuinely helpful, offering recommendations instead of pushing sales. Ethan watched as a mother grabbed 4 boxes of Build-It blocks, a brand he had never heard of. "Is this new?" he asked a cashier. "Oh yeah," she said. "They're flying off the shelves. Parents love them because they're educational and way cheaper than Lego." That made Ethan pause. He pulled out his phone and looked up the manufacturer, Horizon Playworks Inc. They were a small, growing company, not nearly as big as Lego, but expanding fast. Their revenue was climbing. They had just signed a deal with 2 major retailers. His heart raced. This felt like Burlington Beverages all over again. A company growing under the radar, a product people loved and bought repeatedly. It wasn't just theory, it was happening right in front of him. Ethan made a decision. That evening, he bought shares of Horizon Playworks Inc., not because of analyst ratings or Wall Street reports, but because he had seen it with his own eyes. Weeks passed. Unlike Burlington Beverages, Horizon Playworks didn't explode overnight. The stock fluctuated, going up some days, down on others. The old Ethan would have panicked, but he reminded himself of Lynch's words. Ignore the daily noise. If the business is growing, the stock will follow. So he waited. One day, news broke. Horizon Playworks signs national distribution deal. Stock jumps 35%. Ethan couldn't help but smile. It had happened again. His new way of investing, focusing on the real world instead of market hype, was proving itself. And for the first time in his career, Ethan didn't feel like he was gambling. He felt like he was building something real. Ethan sat in his office, staring at the market ticker. Not with anxiety, not with fear, with confidence. His new strategy, investing in what he understood, what he saw thriving in real life, was working. Burlington Beverages had doubled. Horizon Playworks was up 35%. And the best part? He wasn't stressed. Before, his life had been a constant cycle of buying on hype, panicking at dips, and selling at losses. Now, he felt in control. But the real test was coming. One morning, Ethan woke up to a storm of bad news. Recession fears shake Wall Street. Market drops 800 points in worst day of the year. Tech stocks lead the sell-off. His phone lit up with clients panicking. Marcus texted him, "Told you, this is why you can't just hold stocks forever." Ethan sighed. Yes, his stocks were down. Burlington had dropped 12%, Horizon Playworks 15%. The old Ethan would have panicked, sold everything, and gone back to chasing trends. But this time he remembered what Lynch had said. Great companies don't stop being great just because the market panics. He decided to do something radical. Instead of selling in fear, he bought more. Ethan logged into his trading account and bought more shares of both companies. He wasn't gambling. He was investing in businesses he believed in. That day, he walked into Penny's Cafe. It was still full. People were still buying coffee. Nothing had changed. He walked into Bright Kids Toys. Parents were still buying Build-It blocks. Nothing had changed. The stock prices had dropped, but the businesses still thriving. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't afraid of a market crash. He saw it for what it was, an opportunity. And deep down, he knew this was how real wealth was built. The market stayed rough for weeks. Every morning, financial news screamed, "Investors flee as stocks continue to plummet." Recession looming, is this 2008 all over again? Ethan's portfolio was down nearly 20%, and his clients were furious. His phone was flooded with calls. "Ethan, sell everything. I can't take this. This is a disaster. Why aren't we moving to cash?" Even Marcus called him. "Still feeling confident?" he asked, his tone smug. Ethan took a deep breath. Yes, his portfolio was down. But had Burlington Beverages stopped selling coffee? No. Had Horizon Playworks shut down? No. The businesses were fine. It was just Wall Street panicking. He thought of Lynch's advice. You make most of your money in a bear market, you just don't realize it at the time. So, while everyone was selling in fear, Ethan did something crazy. He bought even more. 3 months later, the market started recovering. Slowly at first, then all at once. Burlington Beverages announced a record-breaking quarter. The stock soared 50% in 1 week. Horizon Playworks inked a new licensing deal. Its stock price doubled overnight. Ethan checked his portfolio. Not only had he recovered his losses, he was now up 60%. The clients who had trusted him, richer than ever. The ones who panicked and sold, still waiting for the right time to get back in. Marcus called him again. This time, he wasn't smug. "You really held through all of that." "I didn't just hold," Ethan said, smiling. "I bought." Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he sighed. "Maybe I need to read that book." Ethan chuckled. "Yeah, you really do." Ethan's success didn't go unnoticed. His clients were ecstatic. "You saved my portfolio," Greg Simmons admitted over the phone. "I was ready to pull out, but you were right." Ethan had never heard Greg sound humble before. Even Marcus had stopped mocking him. Instead, he asked, "So, what's the next move?" Ethan grinned. "Same as always. Find great businesses before Wall Street does." Ethan had changed. Before, he had been just another broker, following the same flawed playbook as everyone else. Now, he was thinking like an investor. He stopped wasting time chasing hot stocks or timing the market. Instead, he paid attention to the world around him. He started keeping a journal of businesses he encountered. The new fitness brand that had lines out the door. The grocery chain that expanded despite inflation. The tech company whose software everyone in finance was suddenly using. He researched them, looked at their numbers, and asked, "Is this a business I'd want to own for 10 years? If the answer was yes, he invested. Not because some analyst said so, not because of a trending news article, but because he understood the business himself. This wasn't just a strategy anymore, it was a mindset. One evening, Ethan sat in Penny's cafe, sipping his usual coffee. He overheard a conversation at the next table. "Man, I wish I had invested when stocks were cheap," one guy said. His friend nodded. "Yeah, but no one knew they'd bounce back." Ethan smiled to himself. That was the difference between investors and speculators. Speculators waited for certainty. Investors took action when others were afraid. And for the first time in his life, Ethan knew exactly which one he was. Ethan's confidence had never been higher. Not because his portfolio was up, though it was. He had nearly doubled his initial investments. Not because clients were happy, though they were. He had more referrals than ever. It was because for the first time in his career, he knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't playing Wall Street's game anymore. He was playing his own game. Ethan's success started attracting attention. Young brokers at his firm approached him. "Ethan, how are you picking these stocks before everyone else?" Instead of giving them a complicated formula, he handed them a copy of One Up on Wall Street. "Read this," he said, "then go outside. Watch how people spend money. That's your edge." At first, they laughed, but then they saw his results. And one by one, they started changing their approach. Even Marcus came around. "I hate to admit it," he said one evening, "but you were right." Ethan chuckled. "Say that again? I want to record it." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Don't push it." But Ethan could tell his friend was thinking differently now. And that was enough. Months passed. Ethan's portfolio continued to grow. But he realized something unexpected. The money wasn't the best part. It was the freedom. He no longer stressed over market crashes. He no longer felt like a gambler. He no longer relied on expert opinions. Instead, he trusted himself. For the first time, investing wasn't just about making money. It was about control, about understanding the world, about betting on himself. And that was worth more than any stock gains. Ethan stood outside Penny's cafe, watching the morning rush. The same long lines, the same loyal customers, the same thriving business. He smiled. A year ago, he would have ignored this. He would have been buried in market reports, chasing the next big trend. Now, he saw things differently. Because of one book. Because of one shift in mindset. Because he finally understood that investing wasn't about beating Wall Street. It was about seeing what others ignored. Ethan wasn't just a broker anymore. He was an investor. He wasn't just making money. He was building wealth. And he wasn't just working for clients. He was teaching them a better way. One by one, they started listening. One by one, they started looking at the world around them. One by one, they realized that smart investing was never about chasing trends. It was about common sense. Just like Peter Lynch had said all along. One evening, Ethan's niece, Sophie, sat across from him at dinner. "Uncle Ethan," she said, "I just got my first paycheck. What should I do with it?" Ethan smiled and slid a book across the table. "Start with this," he said. She looked at the cover. One Up on Wall Street. "Read it," Ethan said. "Then look around. The best investment might be right in front of you." Sophie opened the book, curiosity in her eyes. And just like that, the cycle began again. Hey there, listener. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You've just taken in a story that isn't just about investing, but about seeing the world differently. Ethan's journey wasn't about luck. It wasn't about timing the market or chasing hype. It was about paying attention, trusting what's right in front of you, and investing with confidence, not fear. And that's a lesson you can take with you today. Look around. The next great investment might not be hidden in a complicated stock report. It might be the coffee shop you love, the product you can't stop using, or the business that's quietly thriving while the world isn't watching. As Peter Lynch said, the best stock to buy is the one you already understand. So, what do you see? What's around you that others are missing? Maybe it's time to trust your own eyes, your own instincts, and start investing with confidence. Because the best investors aren't the ones who follow the crowd. They're the ones who see the opportunity before everyone else does. Thanks for listening. Now, go find your next big idea